Hey guys, Jester here. Today we're going to be going over one of my favorite modules of all time, the Village of Hommlet. It originally was designed to be the first of a two-part series, the second part being the Temple of Elemental Evil. That second module never came to fruition, but what they did do was take all of their notes and designs for that and turned it into a combined super module that includes the Village of Hommlet in it, as well as everything that was going to be included in T2 plus a whole lot more. And they designated it T1 through 4, the Temple of Elemental Evil. So what we're going to do today is a little bit different than some of the other videos you might have seen concerning D&D products, specifically this one. I'm not going to go into what's wrong with the modules or what could have been or anything like that. I'm just going to go into what's so great about it. Because there's a lot of great stuff here. To start off with, you got the Village of Hommlet. What this is all the old school D&D module products came with the cover being able to detach from the rest of the module, because the cover had a map of some sort in it. This being the actual Village of Hommlet itself. And if you can see through the light blue, it's just a wonderful layout of an old medieval village. The design of this is just really great. The artwork, some of the things you're going to see inside the module is just incredible. And this is what the background to the Temple of Elemental Evil is. Or, I'm sorry, the Village of Hommlet is. The Village of Hommlet. Hommlet, as it is commonly called, is situated in the central part of the Flannis, that portion of eastern Auric continent which is known as civilized. The village, actually hamlet-sized, though local parlance distinguishes it with the term village, is located some 10 or so leagues southeast of the town of Verbach. Now, I will say that in the Temple of Elemental Evil Super Module, they placed it 30 leagues. So I don't know if that was a typo or if they just wanted to make it a little bit further away. But in any case, that's the one glaring thing, and probably the only thing that I'm going to mention as far as discrepancies. It is at a crossroads. To the north is the mighty Velverdiva River, along whose south bank runs the low road. Many days' travel to the east, on the shores of the lake of unknown depths, the near Div, is the great walled city of Divers, the village of Sabanwich, about halfway along the route. Below that, to the southeast and east, are miles and miles of forest, the gnarly beyond which is the wild coast, Woolly Bay, and the Sea of Girnat. The road south forks a league or so beyond the little community, one meandering off towards the wild coast, the other rolling through the lower Kron Hills to the village of Ostwerk, and then eventually turning southwards again into the elven kingdom of Selene. The western road leads into the very heart of the Gnomish Highlands, passing through Greenway Valley about a day's travel distant and going onwards to the Lortmill Mountains far beyond. Hommlet grew from a farm or two, a rest house, and a smithy. The roads brought a sufficient number of travelers and merchant wagons to attract tradesmen and artisans to serve those passing through. The rest house became a thriving inn. A wheel and wainwright settled in the thorp, and more farmers and herdsmen followed, for grain was needed for the passing animals, and meat was in demand for the inn folk. Prosperity was great, for the lord of the district was mild and taxed but little. Trade was good, and the land was untroubled by war or outlaws or ravaging beasts. The area was too free, too beautiful, too bountiful, at least in the eyes of some. Whether the evil came west from divers, as is claimed by one faction, or crept up out of the forest lands bordering the wild coast, as others assert, came it did. At first it was only a few thieves and an odd group of bandits molesting the merchant caravans. Then came small bands of humanoids, kobolds or goblins, raiding the flocks and herds. Local militia and foresters of the Waldgraf of Ostfirk apparently checked, but not stopped, the spread of outlawry and evil. A collection of hovels and their slovenly inhabitants formed the nucleus of the troubles, which were to increase. A wicked cleric established a small chapel at this point. The folk of Hommlet tended to ignore Nulb, even though it was but 6 miles distant. The out-of-the-way position was ideal for the fell purposes planned for this settlement, as was its position on a small river flowing into the Velvet Iver. The thickets and marshes around Nulb became the lair and hiding place for bandits, brigands, and all sorts of evil men and monsters alike. The chapel grew into a stone temple as its faithful brought in their ill-gotten tithes. Good folk were robbed, pillaged, enslaved, or worse. In but 3 years a grim and foreboding fortress surrounded the evil place, and swarms of creatures worshipped and worked their wickedness there. The servants of the temple of elemental evil made Hommlet and the lands for leagues around a mockery of freedom and beauty. Commerce ceased, crops withered, pestilence was abroad, but the leaders of this cancer were full of hubris, and in their overweening pride sought to overthrow the good realms to the north, who were coming to the rescue of the land being crushed under the tyranny wrought by the evil temple. A great battle was fought to the east, and when villagers saw streams of ochre-robed men and humanoids fleeing south and west through their community, there was great rejoicing, for they knew that the murderous oppressors had been defeated and driven from the field in panic and rout. So great was the slaughter, so complete the victory of good, that the walled stronghold of the temple of elemental evil fell within a fortnight, despite the aid of a terrible demon. The place was ruined and sealed against a further return of such abominations by powerful blessings and magic. Life quickly returned to a semblance of what it had been before the rise of the temple, and in the decades since, the village and surrounding countryside have in fact become more rich and prosperous than ever before. A monstrous troll, which plagued the place for a time, was hunted down by a body of passing adventurers. With its ashes, these fellows returned a goodly fortune as well, leaving a portion with the villagers to repay them for their losses before going elsewhere to seek their fortunes. Other adventurers, knowing of the evil that had once resided in the area, came to seek out similar caches, and not a few did locate remote lairs and find wealth, just as some never returned at all. After some 5 years, adventurers stopped coming into the area, as it seemed that no monsters were left to slay, no evil existed here to be stamped out. For 4 years thereafter, this seemed true. But then bandits began to ride the roads again, not frequently, but to some effect. This seemed all too familiar somehow to the good folk of Hommlet, so they sent word to the Viscount that wicked forces might still lurk thereabouts. This information has been spread throughout the countryside, and the news has attracted outsiders to the village once again. Who and what these men are, no one can be quite sure, although all claim to be bent on slaying monsters and bringing peace and security to Hommlet, for deeds speak more loudly than words, and lies cloak true purposes of the malevolent. So that's the background to this original module. It sets up the party coming into the village and going from there. Now, I had mentioned earlier that I just love the artwork. This is on one of the bottoms of the pages, and this is what the party would see as they're entering the small village. I just love how it just shows just what a medieval village would look like. You can almost feel it as you're walking into the village and just gazing at all the things that are going on. Now the party starts off there at the walking into the village. Usually it would be coming from this area right here, and they'd be coming down the path. Here we go, coming down the path, and they'd eventually make themselves to the inn of the Welcome Wench. I just love the name of that inn and tavern. But once they do some exploring and getting to know the people there in town and everything, and picking up rumors at the tavern and so forth, they eventually find that they need to investigate the set of ruins which used to be the moat house, just a little distance from the village, going towards the temple. And this is the artwork of the moat house. And like I said before, there's a person online who has actually designed this moat house for tabletop. And if I could get my hands on that, that would be awesome. But from what I saw of what he's done so far, it looks really incredible, and he did a very good job. But they investigate the moat house. They find some rats lingering about. They find some gnolls, bugbears, and that sort of thing. And then they end up facing the number one baddie, Lareth the Beautiful. Now he's supposed to be basically a favored cleric of Lolth. And that leads to some speculation, given the history of Lolth with the drow elves and such. But anyway, I won't go into all that. But that ended the original module, T1 Village of Hommlet. What I did here, I have created what I like as a vision of what the Temple of Elemental Evil looked like with all of its denizens out on the grounds. If you come in here, sorry for my camera work here, but if you come in here, you are coming into the original broken gates, and there stands Lareth the Beautiful, not in his armor, but as he would look without it. He is welcoming you into this evil place. And you can see in the background the demoness Zugdamoy waiting for you, surrounded by her garden of fungi. But if we do an aerial view coming over here and we swing down, we'll see the water priest and his water elemental. And behind him is the earth priest and the earth elemental. And then we come over here and we find some of the other things that you'll find inside, including bugbears, trolls, Oh, and what is that creepy creature? Play the adventure and you will find out. And then we come over here, coming by Zugdamoy. And then we've got an ogre, an Etten, the temple guard, the temple leaders, I should say. And then coming back over here, we've got the fire priest with the fire elemental, and the air priest with the air elemental. So this is the cover of the Temple of Elemental Evil, and as you can see, it's got the broken gates with the gargoyles on top, zooming in to the evil edifice beyond. And like I said, I tried to reconstruct that here as you come up with the broken gates, the gargoyles, and the evil edifice behind. You zoom in on it, and I tried to show exactly what it would look like. And yes, that is a Gene Simmons face on top there. I just had to include that. So after leaving the moat house, going back to the village to recuperate, they eventually go to the town of Nulb, where they find some interesting looking characters. The road leading from Nulb to the temple is rutted and spotted with rank weeds, thistles, burrs, thorns, nettles, etc. Some foot and animal traffic has been using the track, but it is not a busy thoroughfare. Most traffic between these points avoids using the road so as not to leave a discernible path. As you approach the temple area, the vegetation is disconcerting. Dead trees with a skeletal appearance, scrub growth twisted and unnaturally colored, all unhealthy and sickly looking, or exceptionally robust and disgusting. The ruins of the temple's outerworks appear as dark and overgrown mounds of gray rubble and blackish weeds. Skulls and bones of humans and humanoids gleam white here and there amidst the weeds. A grove of some oddly stunted and unhealthy-looking usk trees still grows along the northern end of the former temple compound, and a stump of a tower juts up from the northeast corner of the shattered wall. The leprous gray temple, however, stands intact, its arched buttresses somehow obscene with their growth of climbing vegetation. Everything surrounding the place is disgusting. The myriad leering faces and twisting, contorted forms writhing and posturing on every face of the temple seem to jape at the obscenities they depict. The growth in the compound is rank and noisome. Thorns clutch, burrs stick, and crushed stems either emit foul stench or raise angry wheels on exposed flesh. Worst of all, however, is the pervading fear which seems to hang over the whole area, a smothering, clinging, almost tangible cloud of vileness and horror. Sounds seem distorted, either muffled and shrill or unnaturally loud and grating. Your eyes play tricks. You see darting movements out of the corner of your eye, just at the edge of vision. But when you shift your gaze towards such, of course there's nothing there at all. You cannot help but wonder who or what made the maze of narrow paths through the weedy courtyard. What sort of thing would wander here and there around the ghastly edifice of evil without shrieking and gibbering and going completely mad? Yet the usual mundane sounds of your travel are accompanied only by the chorus of the winds, moaning through hundreds of temple apertures built to sing like doomed souls given over to the tender mercies of demonkind, echoed by macabre croaks from the scattered flapping, hopping, and leering ravens. There is no doubt you have come to a place of ineffable evil. Still, it is most certainly a place for high adventure and untold treasures. It is time to ready spells, draw weapons, check equipment, and set forth into the maze of peril that awaits you. So guys, that concludes today's edition. I hope you enjoyed my little talk about one of my favorite modules, the Village of Hommlet and its successor, the Temple of Elemental Evil. And I'll be doing more of these coming up soon with other modules that I have and have played through and like immensely. And until then, and as always, see you soon.